Welcome everyone. Sam Leary here. Today I'm talking about how to learn UX writing. UX writing, for those that don't know, in case you didn't watch my previous video, UX writing is the most powerful form of writing if you are seeking success in the digital world. This is what I built my free ebook around, my UX writing guide. This video is effectively going to be covering that. So for those that don't know, I make videos for folks who have a background in the humanities but are interested in leveraging writing for success in the professional world. Or if you want to start a business, the entrepreneurial world, maybe you want to use writing for success in your personal life. I'm also here for that. So without further ado, let's get into it. First things first though, I do want to read this fact. I can't promise that it's going to shift any paradigms, but I think it's helpful context for what is ahead. So fact of the day, 81% of business people stated that poorly written material wastes a lot of time. So this is from an article by Instructional Solutions. Again, poorly written material wastes a lot of time. We all understand that, but the reason why I chose to include this statistic is because it contextualizes what is to come. How do you learn UX writing? I think the most important point, and I'll talk about this in a future slide, is understand the why. And the why is that a lot of people understand inherently that if you have poorly written material, you're not going to generate a positive return on investment. It's not going to be a usable product. You can basically throw it out the window. So let's get into it. I'll run through next my lesson plan for today's video so that we can set you up and you can understand how to learn UX writing. So the lesson plan for today, we're going to talk about how to learn UX writing. Then we're going to talk about why to learn UX writing. Then we're going to dig into a couple of examples. I have a bonus slide prepared. We'll dig into my free ebook, the starter guide. I'll do a bit of an overview, not as in-depth as the last video, but I'll talk about it at length. And then we're going to talk about my specific UX writing process. So before we move on to the next slide, I want to talk about a quote from Peter Drucker. I don't actually know. If you know who this man is, feel free to leave a comment. I am unfortunately not super familiar. What I do know is that he's a manager guy, and that is probably not doing enough justice to who he actually is and what he does, but it's the note I left for myself here. So he's a manager guy. Don't really know who he is. I just know what his words are. And his words are that the best way to predict the future is to create it. So again, that's what I'm trying to do here. If, I really make videos for folks who are interested in leveraging writing to achieve personal, professional, entrepreneurial success. So if I can speak from personal experience, I was an English major in undergrad, and I didn't feel like I was prepared for a transition into the professional world. So really what these videos are is my background's in writing. Like I said, did my undergrad, studied creative writing, maybe not the smartest major, but I did my MFA. I did my MFA at Johns Hopkins. I was very fortunate in my educational opportunities. Still, even on the other side of that, didn't feel super prepared for a transition into the professional world. So that's why I'm talking about this now. I know writing really well, and I want to help other folks understand writing really well. So that's what we're here to do, and we're going to run through it. We're going to start with how to learn UX writing, but before that, I'm sure you thought I was going to move right into it. No. Before that, if this is helpful, if you find anything I talk about helpful, I hope that you will like, comment, and subscribe. I invite you to visit my website, samleary.com, join my email list, and get that the free download, my free UX writing guide to bring you up to speed so you can master the most in-demand writing skill. Now, let's get into how to actually learn UX writing. So a lot on this slide, but let's start. So how you should learn UX writing, first and foremost, I need you to understand learning, generally speaking, even beyond UX writing, learning is an iterative process. I wish a teacher would have told me when I was 5 years old. I mean, I probably wouldn't remember it if they told me when I was 5, but I wish somebody would have told me when I was a student that learning is an iterative process, and that learning doesn't always happen when you're studying, when your nose is in a book. Learning happens when you step away, when your mind is quiet and things are just coming to you, and you're allowing information to just kind of drift through your brain, and it's sitting for a while, and somehow somehow you come out the other side knowing things. I don't really know how that happens, but that's not what these bullet points are about. These bullet points are concrete things that you can actually use. So you want to understand the why, the what, the who, the how, and the when, in that order. So I'll run through this quick in a little bit, my answers to these specific questions. But generally speaking, regardless of whether or not you're trying to learn UX writing, some other skill, whatever it might be, the why, the what, the who, the how, and the when are going to be effectively like where the learning begins. And I know it might sound silly to start there, but I really do recommend it, and I'll explain more in just a little bit. But before I get to that, I want to emphasize the importance of studying examples. So I'm going to cover a couple of UX writing examples in this video shortly. But know that regardless of what the skill is, obviously we're talking again about UX writing here, but studying real life examples is going to help get you ahead. I also want to put a special emphasis on the why. Again, I'll get to that shortly, but the why is important. The why is the prime mover. Why should you learn UX writing? Once you understand why you should, once you understand that on average, it's going to literally offer businesses a 100x on their investment, then that will be enough. Maybe not necessarily. It was enough for me. That's how I should have prefaced it. But that is going to be the kind of thing that motivates you to actually learn. So how to learn UX writing, I could give you a step-by-step guide, but if we're not starting with the why and emphasizing the why, then I don't actually think I'm setting you up to actually go through the process. So if you understand the why, the what, the who, the how, the when, you study examples, you put a special emphasis on the why, you should start studying starter guides. And that's really where this document comes in, my UX writing starter guide, which I've designed basically to bring you up to speed as quickly as possible. So you can visit samleary.com if you're interested in that. But familiarizing yourself with multiple starter guides is going to be valuable because you're going to get multiple different perspectives on how to begin. This is something that I did when I was first learning UX writing, and I think it helped me get ahead. Obviously I have that writing background, which I mentioned previously, but exposing myself to multiple starter guides that were created by different entities or people was helpful because it's just a different perspective. And if I am able to absorb that and then apply it, I think I'm better positioned for, success in the professional world, so to speak. And last but not least is practice a process. And this is going to be the end of this video where I talk about my specific UX writing process. But what I do want to say is that actually having a process that you are abiding by is going to help you more than anything else. Like, if there's one thing that you take away from this video, let it be the fact that processes help you. So again, like, the lead up was a lot for what I delivered just there, but I think that, trying to set yourself up and trying to give yourself processes for whatever the professional activity you're doing is, that's going to help you get ahead. So let's return to the why, the what, the who, the how, the when, in terms of my answers to the questions. So why you should learn UX writing. UX writing improves user experience, engagement, and business success. So UX writing is fundamentally about, empathizing with your user, identifying solutions to their problems, and then implementing those solutions. There's obviously more to it than that, but I'm just trying to give you the spark notes. In a nutshell, it improves user experience. It's better for your user. And because it improves user experience, it's going to facilitate increased engagement. And because it does both of those things, that leads to business success. So in the last video, if you'll remember, I talked about how UX writers effectively are positioned between businesses and organizations on one side and users on the other side. So if you understand that, you start to realize, why UX writers, why UX writing is so valuable. And it's because it bridges the gap between humans and machines. So let's talk more about what. So crafting clear and engaging content for digital products and services is what UX writing is. It's what UX writers do. Ensuring that what ends up on a page, whether it's a web page, whether it is an application, or maybe it's a physical page. I apply UX writing principles all the time when I am actually writing for things that will be printed. If you can empathize with your user, the only way that you're going to craft clear and engaging content is by understanding who your user is and what actually makes engaging content, and what will be, what is clear. For any given idea, there are 1,000 different ways that you can say it, but if you understand who your user is, then you can understand, okay, what are the minimal number of words that we need in order to get somebody to engage, to, spark their attention. So beyond that, though, the who UX writers, they specialize in creating user-focused digital content. Again, a special emphasis under user-focused. Whether the word is you'll hear me say user-focused and user-centric all the time. If you're watching this playlist, taking this free UX writing course, that's what it's all about. It's all about creating digital, not always digital, because again, I think there are a bunch of different ways you can use UX writing principles to inform, different approaches to any sort of writing. But obviously in this specific case, we're talking digital, whatever, user centricity for digital content. So the how, UX writers guide users with clear, concise, engaging content. Again, at some point, there are only so many questions I can answer before it starts to sound like I'm repeating myself because I'm talking about this. But how UX writers work is, again, clear, concise, engaging. Those are really the words. And it seems simple, but you'll see as this video goes on that it gets much more complicated when you try to figure out, try to identify what are mechanisms that we can use to make clear, concise, and engaging content. It actually gets, difficult and time consuming. So when UX writing really became popular in the early 2000s, I love the book Strategic Writing for User Experience by Tori Podmazurski. I plugged it in the last video, the video before that. I'm going to talk about it the next video, all these videos going forward. So in the early 2010s, if I'm not mistaken, I might have the timeline wrong, but the person who wrote Strategic Writing for UX was doing UX writing for Microsoft, for the Xbox 360. And that is really around the time when the large corporations, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, the A players in the space really started realizing that, user experience is awesome, but there are these subcategories, subtopics of user experience. There's design, there's research, there's writing. And I think writing is really important because it's obviously how words are communicated. So hopefully that gives you some idea of, how to start learning. Obviously, I can't just fast forward, the several hundred, if not a few thousand hours it takes to learn UX writing. I'm just trying to get you a head start, because if you understand, these are the boxes that you need to check. This is where you look to in terms of studying, really understanding the why, studying starter guides, and then, actually practicing a process. I think that's how you get ahead. So I want to cite this example. There's an article from NetGuru, 8 examples of good UX writing. This is from Kraken, which not super sure what Kraken does. I think they're like crypto adjacent, which that's for another video. I don't know. Maybe that's like a Patreon video, Sam talking about crypto, about Kraken. But I like this. This is a loading screen that they have releasing the Kraken. It obviously plays on the pun that I looked up was popularized like recently. For me, for some reason, I thought it was like a super old pun, but I guess it's not that old. I think this is good. Why is it good? Why does this work? It works because releasing the Kraken is a pun for my fellow English speakers who are tuned in, who are tuned into like these kind of niche jokes that are made. For those that don't know, release the Kraken it's a joke. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know the particularities, but generally speaking, that's what it is. So why does this work? It works because this is a loading screen for Kraken's interface. And it's this kind of jokey way of, when a screen is loading, if you have a message that a user can read and it registers some positive emotion, that's a way of effectively minimizing the amount of time that, that loading screen actually occupies. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I really need to move on to the next slide because we're on slide number 1 here. I've been spending way too much time on it. I got to get to the end. So if you have questions, that's what the comments are for. I'll be in them. So next up, why learn UX writing? So really it's about improving user experience, establishing brand voice and identity, and then driving conversion. So in terms of improving user experience, first and foremost, enhancing usability. If your product is not usable, it's worthless. It's not doing anything. People will pick it up and they will put it down, and it's going to happen fast. Additionally, reducing frustration and building trust. If a website feels good, I'm sure we all have this experience. If Amazon, for example, I'm going to use, these big companies as examples so often, so bear with me. But the reason why I do is because they have teams. They have teams of UX writers, teams of researchers, teams of designers, developers, you name it. They're huge. And I think it's important to look to those companies as leaders in the space. So building trust specifically, if your content is organized in a good way, if you understand information hierarchies and like information architecture best practices, you can build trust simply by how your words are organized on a screen. And I can say more about that, I'm sure I will in a future video, but understand why you learn UX writing is to improve the user experience of digital products, because that is kind of the first step in getting a conversion that is going to generate a tangible ROI. Next is establishing brand voice and identity. So building brand recognition. I'll talk about UX writing voice charts in some video in the future. I've already talked about it previously, but if you're, UX writers define the voice of a digital experience, and that's how you build brand recognition. For example, if I say think different, a lot of times people, maybe you don't exactly, but many people would associate that with Apple. And that's entirely because of, many people don't know this, but it should be think differently. It's kind of this play, think different. It should, grammatically speaking, the right thing to say is think differently. But Apple, think different. My point is the words are think different, but there's an entire philosophy that goes into the manifestation of those two words. And that is effectively how you build brand recognition. It's how you differentiate from your competitors. If we're staying on the Apple topic, Microsoft at the time, when Steve Jobs was, still with us, still being a crazy, demanding CEO, he wanted to distinguish Apple products from Microsoft products. And the way that he did that was Microsoft is trying to be, in every professional space. And Apple, we're thinking differently. We're trying to design beautiful products that are for the people who think different. So you can understand how the UX writing drives the messaging, and the messaging distinguishes. So that's what I effectively mean when I say it differentiates, helps to differentiate from competitors. Additionally, creating an emotional connection. If you can create an emotional connection via a digital interface, That's how you more competitively position your digital product. Next up is driving conversions. So create persuasive messaging. This goes back to what I was saying previously. Also improving general user flow. This, calls back to the idea of informational architecture and informational hierarchies. UX writers understand how it makes sense for information to cascade. What are your H1 tags, your H2 tags, your H3 tags? How does it all work together? Not to bore you with the headings talk, but the idea is creating persuasive messaging is not just about writing 1 or 2 lines of copy. It's a vision. It's a big picture idea that manifests macro and micro scales alike. User flow and increasing engagement. User flow. How does a business make money online? If it's a product-based business, they make money online by selling their products online. If it's a nonprofit, they might make money online by a fundraising campaign on the website that people can donate to. So understanding the user flow, how are users moving from one page, or let's say how users are moving from a social media platform to the website, from that initial page to the page or the section that inevitably is going to yield the kind of it's the conversion point that is going to yield a positive return on investment. And then increasing engagement. If you're enhancing the usability, to bring this back to the beginning, the way that you increase engagement is, they go hand in hand with each other. So increasing engagement is, I want somebody to come to my website, for example, samleary.com. I want them to download my free UX writing user guide. How do I get that to happen? How do I increase engagement such that my conversion goal is met? These are questions that UX writers aim to answer. And the reason why the field is growing at the rate it's growing at is because every business has these questions. If you're in the digital world, you have these conversion questions. You're trying to figure out how to maximize your return on investment online. This graphic that I've included here from UX Writing Hub, which they are a great resource. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but if you check them out, they have a lot of great information. It's a great community. I definitely recommend it. But I included this graphic, which is titled, it's from an article titled UX Writer Median Regional Income. So the United States and Canada, it's a big income. It's a lot. It's 6 figures and it cascades from there. I don't actually know how this compares to other countries. So people in the comments, if you are from these places outside of the United States and Canada, which, sorry, that's just like where I'm living. That's just what I am. I'm just an American. Let me know how these salaries stack up, relatively speaking. But I do think that this is an important graph to look at, to pay attention to, because in my mind, it is suggestive that obviously I know the data, I know what it's suggestive of, but in my mind, this is what communicates like, yes, this is a growing industry. This is the sort of industry where folks that get in now on the ground level are going to be better positioned 5 years from now when the industry, there's kind of a whole ecosystem that has evolved around the industry. So let's move on to the next one. So studying examples, the fun part. Maybe you don't necessarily think this is fun. Maybe I'm the only one who actually thinks this is fun. But anyways, we'll pretend like I'm not alone in a room talking to myself. Study examples. I love this. So Pixar up here. Down here, just a regular, boring 404 page. So I want to talk about user-centric communication. I want to talk about consistency and brand voice. And I want to talk about problem solving through words. But before I do that, I want to talk about a Nielsen Norman Group quote. which is UX writing is the practice of writing carefully considered information that addresses people's contexts, needs, and behaviors. So this is important because I'm basically going to repeat the quote right now, but the practice of writing carefully considered information, not for any reason, but I shouldn't say not for, any reason, for a few specific reasons, to address people's contexts, to address their needs, and to address their behaviors. And all of this, the term user centricity kind of encapsulates that idea of whoever is going to end up on this website, what's the context, what do they need, and what is their behavior likely to be. So one reason why I love Pixar's, this is a 404 page, you might not be able to tell, but these are both 404 pages, and they emphasize the extent to which, whether it's a 404 page or a contact page, UX writers are the people who, it could be a contact page, it could be a blog page, a services page, whatever it might be, not just those two, obviously, but whatever it might be, UX writers are the people who make those pages extraordinary. And what this page is, this is from a Pixar movie titled I almost said Get Out. That's crazy. It's Inside Out. Yeah. So some, going out, I guess, but from Inside Out. And I can't remember what their name is. It's like Sadness. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments so that I can, just know, I guess. I don't anticipate necessarily talking about this again, but just let me know. So this is a 404 page. It says, "Aw, don't cry." And that's the primary copy. And I'll show on the next slide, it's just a 404 error. What you're looking for may have been misplaced in long-term memory. So why is this a great example, one that I want to focus on? Because the voice, the tone, the vocabulary, it is all centered around Pixar's brand, like specifically the movie. And it obviously incorporates the character, but it's so good because normally when you land on a 404 page, it means something has gone wrong. It means you are not in the place where you're trying to go. So from a UX standpoint, if I can speak from personal experience, the way I design 404 pages is so that when a user ends up there, we don't want them being upset. We don't want them being so upset and angry that they just exit out of the page and they say, "I'm done with this site." We want to try engage them on an emotional level so that we can get them back into the experience. So that whatever the goal of the website is, we are trying to accelerate them to that end. So that's why that's such a great example and why this is not a good example. So before I talk in more detail about that, let's just cover the Pixar 404 versus the normal 404, which I say normal because generally speaking, 404 pages they just state that they're a 404 page and that's it. So Pixar, it's branded and it's ideal for users. This is no longer their contact page. This is their contact page from when the movie was at its peak. So, the idea is like if you end up on Pixar's website at this time, you're familiar with what the movie is, the characters involved. So it's playing to, your context, your needs, and your behaviors. So you've probably seen the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, you're familiar with the movie. Your needs are to, get where you're going, to get off the 404 page. And they make that, Pixar makes that possible by basically creating a mini joke for how you ended up here. So, do with that what you will. But, conversely, the other 404 page is basic. It's boring. It's just communicating that you've simply ended up on a 404 page and it's not doing anything else. If I'm a user who ended up on their page, I'm upset. There's a significant chance, close to zero chance that I'm just exiting out of the website altogether because I'm frustrated that I can't get where I want to go. All right, next up, consistency and brand voice. So Pixar, we have image. We have, the image, it's a character from the movie, something recognizable, something that will resonate with users. We have voice, tone, and it's minimalistic. It's clean, immediately perceptible, immediately readable. Whereas the other, it's basic, it's bland. I'm gonna forget about this. If the image wasn't on this slide right now, I probably would have already forgotten about it. So yeah, this is from an article, Custom 404 Error Page Design Using HTML and CSS Coding, Nepal. I won't speak too much to this. This is just from an article that kind of, you know, speaks more to 404 pages as I understand them. But this is, yeah, just not a great example of what you want to do with a 404 page. So beyond that, though, problem solving through words. That's what, you know, how you can learn UX writing by studying examples. You know, it is what I'll describe as a lighthearted letdown. So lighthearted in that this is kind of jokey, this is cute, it's funny, the word choice, the character, it is cute, it's funny, and to that end, it's lighthearted. Now, when we focus on the second word, a letdown, it's a letdown insofar as it is a 404 page. It's a letdown insofar as it is a page that you're not supposed to really end up on, or you end up there by mistake, if that makes sense. So the normal page, again, conversely, it iterates the break, and that's really all it does. It communicates like, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be. Oops, the page you're looking for wasn't found. Sorry, hope you can, you know, figure it out somehow. And that's kind of, you know, it's not going to like infuriate me so that, you know, I put a hole in my wall necessarily, but it is irritating because this isn't where I don't want to be on a 404 page in general. So the least you could do is like be nice to me when I end up on one, like make a joke, try to be cute or something. And to that end, it's costly. You know, if somebody clicks off your site, they're gone forever. And that translates for small businesses, for nonprofits, for solopreneurs. That translates to, you know, lost dollars. It translates to a negative return on investment. So I'm hoping now you're getting an idea of why UX writing is important and the end that it serves. So here's that 404 page, a better look, not pretty. We are not trying to create any of these ourselves. So just to read through it, 404 page, it says ops. That should be oops. Unless that's the joke and that's the angle they're trying to take, which I didn't even think of that. Maybe this is the big brain breaking moment, but I don't really think that is converting anybody. Ops versus oops. I think that might just be a bad typo. So 404, oops, page not found. Sorry, the page you're looking for doesn't exist. If you think something is broken, report a problem. So you can return to home or report a problem. That's not easing anybody's sufferings. That is just, you know, if I'm in this experience, I land on this page, I'm upset. And I might click return to home, but I might just as easily click exit and never come back here ever again. Again, conversely, this beautiful 404 error page. Aw, don't cry, it's just a 404 error. What you're looking for may have been misplaced in long-term memory. So, you know, this is really telling you to turn around, go back to where you were before this page, which I think it's cute. I think it's fun. I cropped the rest of the page, but there was like a call to action lower down that is, you know, helpful in facilitating somebody's movement to a different web page. But at the same time, you know, the header, the navigation menu is at the top for people to easily click. So that's worth knowing. My mouse wasn't working there for a second. Bonus slide. Wow, big deal. So what UX writers do, I've kind of talked about these examples, explored them at length, but when we talk about what UX writers do, we need to talk about the my UX writing process, which I'll get to this in a second, but we need to talk about the design thinking process. So it's empathizing, defining, iterating, prototyping, and testing. 5 phases. And it's a way in which you can kind of organize your product development lifecycle or your project development lifecycle so that you are passing through phases in a way that makes sense for your team size and your workload. So it starts with empathy. It starts with empathizing, understanding your users' needs and pain points through research, interviews, and user personas. if you're going to create a product or a project for somebody, you need to understand who you're creating it for. So that's why you need to empathize with them. On the right, you'll see a design thinking infographic from the design thinking process. How does it work? From Mac, which I like this article. You don't have to read all these that I link, but I just try to link what's been helpful to me. And this was helpful for me. I like the idea that it's organized as this infinity loop because it is an iterative process. You know, you're going testing, constantly testing. It's never just like launch and something is done. Unfortunately, that's not really how things work. I wish there were perfect products that could just be launched and never revisited again, but that is not the case. So anyways, let's bring it back. Empathize. After you understand your user via research, interviews, user persona development, understand their needs, their pain points, you define their problems, basically. Translate insights into clear, actionable objectives for content and language that align with users' expectations and business goals. Put more simply, defining. You are defining their problems. You're empathizing with, what's going on via research, interviews, and user personas, and then you're saying, these are their problems. I understand these people. This is what bothers them. Once you've moved through those two, you move on to iterating. So collaborating with designers, developers, product managers, regular managers, marketers, whatever your team might be. Maybe it's just you. Maybe you're collaborating with stakeholders. I don't know what's going on in your neck of the woods. All I can say is iterating is about collaborating to create user-centered content, and it's refining languaging and messaging. So iterating is, it's a process that it's like something once you've defined the problems of your user, then you transition to how do we provide solutions for those problems. So you'll brainstorm. Typically what I do is I just brainstorm. Okay, I say, okay, these are the user's problems. These are 3 to 5 to 7 potential solutions to their problems. Once you've done that, identified possible solutions, you have to actually, construct models. And that brings us to prototype. So craft contextually appropriate microcopy, calls to action, larger, more in-depth content and navigation elements that support user flows and enhance the overall user experience. So that's what prototyping is all about. Prototyping is about actually trying to build models of the solutions that you came up with during the ideation phase. Beyond that, so my case, what happens is like I'll prototype. I'll do 3 different prototypes, okay? One of those prototypes is going to be something that is in the direction we want to move in. So then it comes down to testing. So testing is about validating content effectiveness through usability testing, A/B testing, and analytics, and then making data-driven decisions based on what you collected, based on the tests that were conducted. Effectively, improvements for optimizing the user's experience. So just to talk quickly about this, like Google Analytics is an amazing free tool. I know Google isn't like super cool. Obviously they're an A player in the space. They are like a giant tech company, which, maybe that also is like a Patreon thing, something that I can talk about later, because just beyond the scope of this video. But Google Analytics is super helpful for helping to identify what copy works, what content works. That's at least been my experience. I definitely recommend it for others, but always making sure, in terms of testing UX writing, testing other content elements, you want to make data-driven decisions. So how do you make data-driven decisions? If we're talking about a website, Google Analytics is a great tool. If we're talking about Facebook or Instagram, Meta Business Suite is a great place to look. Obviously, like YouTube, there's YouTube Studio, but figuring out, okay, where does the data live? How can I access it? And how can I use the data to make design decisions, to make writing decisions? That is what UX writers do. That's the process that we move through. And it's how, this kind of infinite loop, iterative design thinking process translates to a good 404 page that is going to keep somebody using your experience, or a bad 404 page, which is going to make me want to, quite frankly, put my fist through my computer screen, leave your website, and never come back. So, it might not seem like it's that important, but in terms of bringing dollars in, UX writing is important. Next up, the UX writing starter guide. So 5 principles of UX writing. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about content presentation, which is really about design. And I'm also going to talk about mechanisms for quality. So the graphic that's over here, I'll touch on this first and foremost. So 3 tips to keep learning if you want to learn UX writing for professional reasons, for entrepreneurial reasons. My recommendation is to watch me on YouTube. So if you are still here, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. It's a miracle that you are still here after all this time. So, you're ahead. You're ahead of the game. You're doing great. You're watching me on YouTube. Also, read my blog. My blog will help. I kind of do write-ups of videos that are distilled into like 10-minute articles that can be easily digested. That's my blog. I recommend reading the blog. That's going to help supplement the video content. Also, join my newsletter, get my free UX writing starter guide. That's what all this is for. Visit my website, samleary.com. And yeah, get on that email list. Get your free ebook. So that's how you can keep learning beyond this. 5 key principles of UX writing, though: relevance, clarity, simplicity, structure, and organization. All of these are important. How relevant is your content? Is your content clear? Is it simple? Is it something that is immediately scannable? How long does it take to access? I'm sorry, but I've worked with people in the past who they feel very strongly about their, 2 paragraphs of text that they want to occupy, primed real estate on their homepage. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you're not doing yourself any favors. Nobody cares as much about the content that you have on your website, on your social media channels, as you do. It's the case. I hate to break it to you, but nobody is caring more than you, the decision maker, the person implementing, cares. Next, structure and organization. Information architecture. I could make an entire video series that is exclusively dedicated to information architecture, that is exclusively dedicated to what is the hierarchical organization of your digital product, your website, your application. Because if it's not structured in a way that is intuitive, in a way that addresses your users' needs, then it's failing. That's why these are the 5 principles. I'm going to make a video in the near future about talking at greater lengths about each of these 5 principles, so stay tuned for that. But for now, all you need to know, got ahead of myself. All you need to know is relevance, clarity, simplicity, structure, and organization. If you can cover those, if you can go on, your little chat GPT, say, write me content for this website that is relevant, that is clear, that is simple. I'm not saying that ChatGPT is not going to spit you out something that is great. That's what you need. My point is more so, if you understand these 5 key principles, you know what questions to ask. And that's going to help get you started, which is really what I am here to do. Next up, though, and this kind of builds on structure and organization, is content presentation, which is really design. So visual appeal, real world examples, and then practical tools and resources. So for content presentation, visual appeal is everything. If you can make something look good, that's half the battle. Beyond that, real world examples, there's this Picasso quote that I love, which is good artists copy, great artists steal. So real world examples, whatever you're trying to create a real world example for, if you're beginning, if you're not really sure about what you're doing, steal it. Don't actually steal it, but figure out what the form is and adapt it so that it is useful for the context that you need. It's not something that I do these days. I kind of feel like I've got a leg to stand on. I've got my bearings, whatever. But in the beginning, if you don't really understand information architecture or content hierarchy best practices, a great way to start is like, okay, if I'm doing a website job for a business in the food and beverage industry, okay, let me find 10 examples of food and beverage, of restaurants, of bars that have 10 times the budget that this project has, and let me see what they're doing right, and let me learn from them. That's really what content presentation is all about. And then practical tools and resources, that's what this channel's for. I'm trying to offer you practical tools and resources. When I talk about the 5 key principles of UX writing, I'm going to talk about content presentation and design in greater detail. For now, understand that there are places you can look for practical tools and resources. Udemy, YouTube, individual creators, UX Writing Hub. You can go to all these places for tools and resources. Don't overspend. That's something I mentioned in other videos. Be very careful, but those tools exist. Those resources exist. And the more of those that you expose yourself to, the better you're going to position yourself for success, because you're going to have a wider breadth of knowledge to draw on. Next up, I have to take a breath. I'm getting winded here. Next up, mechanisms for quality: expertise, authority, trust, EAT. That's how Google measures content, basically. Like, are you an expert? Do you have authority in the field? Are you a trustworthy person? So what are the mechanisms that are going to help you check those boxes? I'm going to offer them going forward. When we get to, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about UX writing questionnaires, as well as UX writing voice charts. That's where we're going to, and my actual process is where we're going to get into the nitty gritty of mechanisms to ensure that, whatever the inputs are on the other side, the output is something high quality. Accessibility, and then just staying up to date. Those are super important, and they go hand in hand. So I recommend developing a UX writing Twitter list. If you're on Twitter, I know it's kind of a dumpster fire right now. As I'm recording this video, it's not going great. But curating, basically, if you're not on Twitter, curate your social media, the content that you're getting sent your way, so that you're getting valuable information, so that there are creators that you can trust that are sending information your way. That's how, those are kind of smaller mechanisms that you can put in place that will, ensure you're getting updated information that's helping you create accessible products. So now, my UX writing process. 3 phases, and I've also synthesized this with the design thinking process. So what that means is a traditional writing. There's really only 3 phases. There's pre-writing, your planning phase, there's your writing phase, there's your revising phase, and it's just an endless loop of chaos and pain and suffering, which I say as somebody who has written extensively over the last decade of my life. So anyways, pre-writing, establish content objectives and define language guidelines. You're planning right now. So with UX writing, you're researching user needs, you're gathering business requirements, and you're collaborating with cross-functional teams. So you're having conversations with stakeholders, you're gathering different business materials that are going to be necessary to help you actually execute when it comes time to write. This looks like brand guidelines. This looks like any research documentation that exists, and documentation more generally. And then researching user needs, actually conducting that research yourself so that you can empathize with your user and define potential solutions for them. That's really what happens during this phase. Generally speaking, during the pre-writing phase, I recommend using just like Google Docs, just a free word processor. For me, Google Docs makes sense because a lot of people use Google products and it's easily shareable. So that's why I like using Google Docs. But once you've done that legwork to empathize with users and define their solutions, then it comes time to actually write. And for the UX writing process, generally speaking, I like using either Canva. Canva's easy because I can whip it in Canva. I can I can work pretty fast in Canva. Figma takes a little more time just because it is, a more intense software. But effectively what's happening during the writing phase is you empathize with your users, you understand them, you've defined their solutions. Now we're trying to ideate those solutions. We're trying to figure out what could those solutions be and how can we model those solutions. So developing user-centric copy and iterations of the copy. It might be full pages that you're developing copy for. It might be as simple as, calls to action or navigation elements. Otherwise, just as easy, brand voice and supporting materials. I guess I left off materials, but brand voice is kind of an umbrella term for everything that's expected to be on the website, in an application, on different social media platforms, etc. So beyond that, though, it comes down to product or service user flows. If it's a service-based business and you have a website, what's the user flow to get somebody to convert to where they're purchasing a service? Conversely, if we're talking products, what is the user flow that makes sense to get somebody to convert? Is it a high ticket or a low ticket item? And depending on which of those it is, how do we make writing decisions that facilitate a conversion that makes sense? So, a lot of talking here. Getting close to the end. I commend you for being here with me. Once we've prototyped, it's time to actually implement and test a solution. So reviewing and refining content, getting user feedback, analyzing data, key performance indicators, KPIs, performance metrics, measuring the data, what is the bounce rate of a page? In terms of who ends up on a given page and how many people actually end up clicking through and converting, what do those metrics look like? And how are those how can we use that information to make better decisions, to get better content in the right place so that we are giving the user the right information at the right time to make the right decision, to solve their pain points. That's how internet money happens. That's how a positive return on investment happens for businesses, nonprofits, solopreneurs, you name it. And understanding also that this is an iterative process for clear, engaging, and effective content. Iterative. Understand what iterative means. It doesn't mean you're doing this once and it's going to be good. It doesn't mean that you're going to do this twice and it's good, or 3 times and it's good. It means that you repeat the process, and every time you're doing it, you're gaining new insights and you're refining the product, the experience that is being put before a user. And you're doing this using, in this case, I recommend, from a data standpoint, Google Analytics is by far the A player. It's free. You can easily create an account. It takes all of 5 minutes. If you want to link it to your website or connect it to your website, maybe then it takes 15 minutes, but even then it's pretty quick. And I think if you're just moving between Google Docs, Canva, or Figma, which again, Canva offers a free tool. Figma, I know they were purchased by Adobe recently, but I'm pretty sure they're still free. Anyways, I included all of these because, to the best of my knowledge, they're all free. I know Google Analytics is, I know Google Docs is, I know Canva offers a free version, and I'm pretty sure Figma is still free. So just know that you're engaging in an iterative process, but these are free tools that you can leverage. So that's what I've got. That is everything I have to say for how to learn UX writing. If you have questions still, I invite you to leave me a comment, ask your question, and I will respond. I might even make a video about it. But for now, I hope you will subscribe to my channel, follow my other socials. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, and then download my free ebook. Go over to samleary.com, join my email list, join my newsletter. You'll get weekly business insights, UX writing insights, artificial intelligence insights when you download that free ebook. So I'm always going to be here as a resource to help you on your UX writing journey. For now, I am out of things to say. I need to go take a break, stop talking for like 3 days because I feel like I've just been running through it all. But yeah, that's it. So I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.